In this particular school district in North Carolina, the teachers are being told that the only students who will be allowed to watch the inauguration are those whose parents sign a permission slip allowing them to do so. Yet another example of how people on the left have become discombobulated by Trump. Do you think any teacher in America has ever asked for a permission slip in order to show anything from Obama? Has that ever once happened? Ever in any school district anywhere? If this was done 8 years ago and some parent refused to give permission for their kid to see Obama, they would have been accused of racism. Good afternoon, Milwaukee. This is the Mark Belling Late Afternoon Show on News Talk 1130 WISN. I just talked to the program yesterday about how I get stuff from the audience all the time, but I now find that I'm getting stuff from people who aren't just here in Wisconsin, but around the country, and that's kind of interesting. The first one that I want to share with you, and the person who said it, obviously, this is something that he became aware of in his community, and it bothered him. He just felt that we ought to know about this. It's interesting. He's an individual who works for a school district. I'm not going to name the community because he's asked to be anonymous for reasons that will become obvious when you hear what he shared with me. But I will tell you the state. It's really revealing. It has to do with the preparations in his school district for handling next week's inauguration of President Trump. I'm going to give you his background, and then I'm going to share with you the story. And I think it's interesting that this is North Carolina. So for those of you who think that liberalism and liberal idiocy in the schools and unprofessionalism by leftist hacks who call themselves teachers but are nothing more than ideologizers who abuse their positions by trying to indoctrinate kids rather than teaching them, that this isn't just a Wisconsin or even a Midwestern phenomenon. So here's what he writes, and then I'm going to get into the detail of what he sent me. Mark, I'm a regular listener of yours on iHeartRadio. I am also an athletic director at a public school in North Carolina. He then identifies the school, and he gave me the information on all this, but I'm not going to name the specific school, what difference does it make, but it is in North Carolina. I entered education 10 years ago after working in the corporate world for 5 years after college. I mention this only because I have a unique perspective on education and the way it is perceived and operates. While I could give you endless examples of political bias and government waste in public education, I have chosen one specific example that has rubbed myself and some of my conservative colleagues in our district the wrong way. The attached email, and he sends it, was sent to our entire district as a guideline for next week's inauguration. This has been in addition to many emails, instructions in faculty meetings, and individual comments given to staff regarding the handling of our new president-elect. What is alarming is over the past 10 years in education, at no time have any of these guidelines been set. 8 years ago, we were encouraged to show President Obama's inaugural speech as an example of hope for our students. On an annual basis, our social studies teachers have been instructed to use the State of the Union addresses as a beacon of instruction. So let me interject. He points out that 8 years ago when Obama was being inaugurated, teachers were encouraged in their classes to show the inaugural speech. Furthermore, in their social studies classes, inaugural addresses have been one of the things that they teach. Going back over history, this president said this one said that. So it's been a part of their curriculum, and 8 years ago it was something that was encouraged to be viewed within this school district. Now we come of course, to Trump. And before I get back to the email he sends me the one that is being sent to all of the teachers in his particular district. And it comes from the assistant superintendent. I will read it. On Friday, January 20th, 2017, our nation will undergo the peaceful transfer of power as one president ends his term and another begins his. Many media outlets will broadcast the inauguration of the 45th president. The ceremony, which is steeped in history and tradition, provides an opportunity for the public to watch the pomp and circumstance unfold. It also highlights how a new administration interprets and embraces history and tradition. The inauguration events can certainly be a learning opportunity for our students. Please keep a few things in mind if you decide to show the inauguration during the school day. Parents will need to provide permission for their children to view the inauguration. Teachers and administrators should not share their personal political opinions in regard to the inauguration. Students whose parents don't want them to view the inauguration must be provided an alternate learning activity. Wow. In this particular school district in North Carolina, the teachers are being told that the only students who will be allowed to watch the inauguration are those whose parents sign a permission slip allowing them to do so. You can't require the kids to watch the inauguration, and in fact, the other way around. If you want to show it, you can only show it to kids whose parents sign in advance that they want their kids to see the inauguration. Now, the guy points out to me that this is obviously rubbing a lot of his conservative colleagues the wrong way. The notion that you have to get the permission from a parent to show something that you believe is educational instruction. And he also points out that that was not the case 8 years ago with Obama. And in fact, and he then sent to me a posting that they sent to them 8 years ago in which they strongly encouraged the teachers to show the inauguration. Now, this is all very subtle, but it shows you the kind of bias that is pervasive in schools. First of all, every parent should want every child to watch an inaugural address. It's newsworthy and it's part of our history, whether you agree with it or not. And I think it would have been proper instruction 8 years ago to make kids watch Obama's address, whether you agree with him or not. And it's proper, I think, and it's proper education for kids to see Trump's address. I do think it is a good educational experience. Inaugural addresses are part of our history. The idea now that you're going to require a permission slip is a way of allowing kids and parents and teachers to be able to get out of making all of the kids watch Trump, something that they haven't obviously done with any other inauguration prior to this. So the guy who sent this to me, who, as I say, is affiliated with a school district in the state of North Carolina, and that's where this is coming from, he's bothered by it. He was bothered enough by it that he felt as though me and you guys in the audience ought to know about it. He continues, what is alarming is over the past 10 years in education, at no time, this is what I read before, but I want to pick it up. What is alarming is over the past 10 years in education, at no time have any of these guidelines been set. 8 years ago, we were encouraged to show President Obama's inaugural speech as an example of hope for our students. On an annual basis, our social studies teachers have been instructed to use the State of the Union address as a beacon of instruction. As you will see below, the policy has suspiciously shifted to needing parental permission just to show an inauguration. While one could make the case that the inauguration is not suitable for learning in a social studies classroom, it is the obvious double bias that exists that is alarming. In closing, I thought this may be of interest to you as it comes from another area of the country. The county I live in is overwhelmingly conservative, yet our schools seem to have consistently taken liberal stances. He goes on and says, I would prefer that my name not be used and so on, but he does sign it, and the material that he sent to me does come under the letterhead of the assistant superintendent from the school that he sent it from. A couple of things. Yet another example of how people on the left have become discombobulated by Trump. They are beside themselves and acting to the point of being irrational. Secondly, he mentions that he's from a very conservative area of North Carolina. Well, it's a swing state, in many parts of the state, overwhelmingly Republican, overwhelmingly conservative. So even in this extremely conservative area, according to this school administrator who contacts me, the people who run the district are overwhelmingly liberal. Anyway, I thought it was interesting to share that experience from a listener who is nowhere near here, in how in his own district, they have gotten so childish that they will not allow a teacher to show the inauguration on television unless the child has gotten a permission slip from their parents. And you know there will be some lefty parents, although parents apparently this is a conservative area, who will not get permission for their kid to view it, that they are so childish about their despising of Trump that they won't even allow their child to watch the inauguration of a president. That's what this has come to, and that's how crazy Trump has driven the people who don't like him. Do you think any teacher in America has ever asked for a permission slip in order to show anything from Obama? Has that ever once happened? No. Ever in any school district anywhere where, okay, we're going to show Obama, but only to those parents who've given permission for their kids to watch Obama. This is the very first thing Trump will do as president of the United States. Now, I don't know. Are they doing this all over America? I doubt that this one district in North Carolina is the only one that's acting so childishly, though I suspect it's probably going on in a lot of places. And the very first thing Trump has done, and they're already crazy and out of control about it.
The more school districts hear about this, though, they're going to think, ooh,
oh,
that's
I
a good
probably
idea.
should not have read the guy's letter. The way the guy from North Carolina sent me the copy of the permission slip. I'm going to read this here. Dear parents, on Friday, January 20th, 2017, our nation will undergo the peaceful transfer of power as one president ends his term and another begins his. Many media outlets will broadcast the inauguration of the 45th president. The ceremony, which is steeped in history and tradition, provides an opportunity for the public to watch the pomp and circumstance unfold, and is also a learning opportunity for students. I plan to show the inauguration during my blank period. You fill it in class in the auditorium of the school on January 20th. Please complete the form below. My child, and then blank, has my permission to view the inauguration in school. Or you can check, my child blank does not have permission to view the inauguration in school on Friday, January. Well, Matt, you wonder why some people end up to be the liberal goofs that they are. Imagine being raised by a parent who wouldn't give permission for their child to see the inauguration. And by the way, if this was done 8 years ago and some parent refused to give permission for their kid to see Obama, they would have been accused of racism.
Absolutely.
It just would have been an absolute act of racism to not give your kid permission to even see. And as I say, I think that the inauguration is something, I'm not saying necessarily first graders, but I think it's a learning experience, and it is a valuable thing without regard to which party
the older
it is.
kids should see it. And the other thing it'll do is, so your daddy's a Trump guy, and so that's why you're here. And the kids who aren't,
that's another part of it.
Why are we doing this? Why are we, kids that age don't need to be separated by what their parents' political beliefs are. That's a completely ridiculous idea.